A gust of wind blew across the vast expanse of Joint Base Andrews, snatching a soldier's hat and sending it skittering across the tarmac. The hat, a symbol of duty and honor, danced away on the breeze, just as the day had seemed to. What was meant to be routine suddenly became anything but. Soldiers stood in formation, their crisp uniforms stark against the overcast sky, eyes forward, every movement calculated with military precision. And then there was the hat, tumbling, rolling, like a renegade that refused to adhere to the script. It was supposed to be an ordinary day at Joint Base Andrews, a day filled with the usual formalities and procedures. But in a moment that no one could have predicted, this routine transformed into something far more profound. The hat, having now traveled a considerable distance, seemed like a small nuisance in the grand scheme of things, but what unfolded next turned this trivial event into an unforgettable moment. Enter President Donald Trump, the Commander-in-Chief, descending from Air Force One with his unmistakable presence, surrounded by a phalanx of Secret Service agents. As cameras clicked and reporters took notes, no one could have foreseen what was about to happen. The nation's leader, known for his larger-than-life persona, was about to do something entirely unexpected. A flash of movement. The president, in his sharp navy suit, broke from his usual stride. In a moment that seemed almost surreal, Donald Trump himself began chasing after the soldier's hat. The image of the most powerful man in the world bending down to retrieve a runaway hat could have been a source of amusement. But as the wind caught it once more, sending the hat tumbling just out of reach again, the scene began to take on a different tone. One of perseverance, of humility, of simple human connection. There he was, the leader of the free world, now fully committed to his task, chasing down the hat with a determination that was both earnest and, in its own way, touching. The cameras zoomed in as the president reached for the hat again, but the wind, almost playfully, kept it just beyond his grasp. And then, finally, success. With a swift motion, President Trump snatched the hat from the ground, dusted it off, and turned back toward the Marine who had lost it. In that moment, the young Marine, Ethan, stood frozen in disbelief. What could he say? What should he do? This was not part of his training. As the president approached, hat in hand, all eyes were on the two of them. Trump walked up to Ethan, placed the hat back on his head with a pat on the shoulder, and gave a smile, a moment of quiet acknowledgement between a soldier and his commander-in-chief. It was a brief exchange, but it carried weight. It wasn't about power or politics anymore. It wasn't even about the hat. It was a symbol of respect, of leadership that isn't afraid to stoop down for the small things, of a shared understanding that no one is too important to offer a simple act of kindness. The moment captured the attention of millions as footage of the incident went viral almost instantly. What started as a minor mishap turned into something much more, a powerful reminder that sometimes it's the smallest gestures that reveal the most about who we are. The image of President Donald Trump chasing after a soldier's hat may have been humorous at first glance, but it soon transformed into a profound symbol of humility, respect, and connection. And at the heart of it all was a young Marine named Ethan, whose ordinary day became extraordinary in the most unexpected way. This moment reminds us that even in the most public of roles, humanity always finds a way to shine through. Sometimes it takes a gust of wind and a runaway hat to remind us of that. Private Ethan had dreamed of serving his country ever since he was a little boy growing up in a small Nebraska town. His father, a Vietnam War veteran, had always told him that being a soldier wasn't about glory, but about duty, sacrifice, and unwavering responsibility. Ethan, having grown up under the shadow of his father's experiences, lived by those words. They became the very foundation of his life. Every grueling day of training, every drop of sweat, every sacrifice he made led him to this moment, standing tall as a Marine, ready to serve and protect his country. But nothing had prepared him for this. That morning, as the bitter wind whipped across the tarmac, Ethan stood at attention, his posture flawless, his eyes fixed ahead, and his resolve unshakable. It was supposed to be just another day in the life of a Marine. Air Force One was ready to depart, its engines roaring with power, and all eyes were on the arrival of President Donald Trump. The world outside Joint Base Andrews felt distant, but here, in the presence of the Commander-in-Chief, Ethan felt a sense of pride, knowing he was fulfilling what he believed to be the pinnacle of his career. Then, without warning, everything changed. A sudden, fierce gust of wind tore through the air, sending Ethan's perfectly placed hat flying from his head. It tumbled, danced, and then, just as if the universe had choreographed it, landed directly in President Trump's path. The wind howled in the background as Ethan's heart sank into his stomach. For a moment, time froze. His breath caught in his throat. His body stiffened. But he didn't move. His mind screamed in panic, but he stood there, still, his training kicking in. In the rigid world of military discipline, this was a disaster. Nothing could have been worse. Ethan's mind raced. Protocol demanded that he remain perfectly still, unflinching in the face of any distraction. But the humiliation of having his hat roll across the ground directly into the path of the President of the United States? That was a nightmare he couldn't escape. Would this simple, uncontrollable mishap define him? Would it overshadow everything he had worked for? As the seconds ticked by, Ethan's thoughts spiraled into uncertainty. What if the President saw him as weak or incapable? What if his fellow Marines looked down on him for such an embarrassing blunder? His legs felt like lead, his body stiff with tension, and his focus wavered for the briefest moment. Would this one small mistake become the story that haunted him for the rest of his life? Just when he thought it couldn't get worse, the eyes of the entire base, all of Washington, D.C., and the world's media seemed to be locked on him, waiting for his next move. The fate of the moment seemed to be in his hands, but what could he do? All he could do was stand there, frozen, waiting for the inevitable. But then, something unexpected happened, something that none of them could have predicted. The President, with all his authority and stature, began to walk toward the hat. The cameras flashed, capturing every step of this surreal moment. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as the leader of the free world reached down to grab the hat, and for a split second, Ethan thought he might be witnessing a scene from a movie. A moment where the unimaginable became reality. Was the President going to ignore the mishap? Or would this be the end of Ethan's career before it even began? Would this incident be remembered as a moment of respect or a moment of ridicule? As the hat tumbled away, Ethan felt like the world was crumbling around him. His heart raced, and every muscle in his body tensed as if bracing for impact. The humiliating scenario played out in slow motion. He expected the worst: embarrassment, reprimand, or worse, public scorn. The thought of standing in front of the President of the United States with his hat blown away like a symbol of his failure. His mind raced with scenarios, none of them good, as the hat danced away, seemingly mocking him. What would happen now? Would his career as a Marine come crashing down with this one simple, uncontrollable mishap? The eyes of the world seemed to focus on the tiny error, on the hat that had caused an unimaginable ripple in his carefully crafted life. All he could do was stand there, motionless, praying that somehow he could undo the moment. But then something extraordinary happened, something that no one could have foreseen. President Trump, who had been making his way down the tarmac, stopped in his tracks. For a moment, it seemed like time itself had stopped, as every eye turned to see what would happen next. Instead of continuing forward, brushing past the accident as most would have expected, the president did something that no one, including Ethan, had imagined. He bent down, calmly retrieved the hat, and, without missing a beat, walked right over to the young Marine. What followed next was a gesture that would resonate far beyond that tarmac. With a smile that softened his usually stern demeanor, President Trump placed the hat back on Ethan's head, gently, but with clear purpose. As if that wasn't enough, the president patted Ethan's arm, an unexpected show of support and camaraderie. In that fleeting moment, it wasn't about politics, power, or the national spotlight. It was about something far more human. The cameras caught every second of the interaction, but for Ethan, it felt as though the whole world had melted away. He stood there, stunned, struggling to process what had just happened. Here he was, a young Marine who had braced for ridicule, instead receiving a moment of grace, humanity, and respect from the most powerful man in the world. The weight of the moment pressed down on him as he held back a wave of emotion. He had feared the judgment of millions, but instead he had been given something priceless, a reminder that humanity could still shine through even in the most unexpected circumstances. For Ethan, that small act, a simple, quiet gesture of kindness, spoke volumes. The president, surrounded by his security, aides, and the immense weight of the world's gaze, had taken a moment to show respect to a soldier, a young man who had devoted his life to serving his country. It was a powerful message that transcended rank, politics, and fame. That even in the highest echelons of power, there was room for empathy and human connection. What could have been a career-defining moment of humiliation had instead become a life-changing experience. Ethan stood taller, not just because of his uniform, but because of the unexpected respect he had just been shown. And as he glanced at the president, their brief but meaningful exchange spoke louder than any words ever could. This wasn't just a moment in time, it was a lesson in kindness, humility, and the unexpected ways that respect can bridge even the widest divides. Would this simple act of grace forever change Ethan's perception of leadership? Would the ripple effect of that gesture inspire others to lead with more empathy, more humanity, more understanding? Ethan would carry that moment with him forever. What he had feared would be his most embarrassing moment had, instead, become a defining memory, one that would stay with him for the rest of his life. For Private Ethan, the event was surreal. He had always imagined his life as a Marine would be filled with disciplined service, routine duties, and moments of quiet pride. Never did he anticipate that one small mistake, his hat being blown away by the wind, would thrust him into the center of a viral story that would captivate millions. In the blink of an eye, he had gone from being an unknown young Marine, standing at attention on a tarmac, to becoming a symbol of humility, respect, and unexpected kindness. It was a reality he hadn't prepared for, and it felt almost like something out of a dream. When Ethan returned to base, he was greeted with an unexpected warmth. His fellow Marines, normally stoic and focused on their duties, clapped him on the back, congratulating him with grins and playful jabs. They teased him about becoming a viral sensation, but there was something genuine in their tone. They weren't just acknowledging the unexpected moment. They were acknowledging Ethan's ability to handle the situation with composure and dignity. Even his commanders, known for their strict demeanor and high expectations, offered words of praise. They commended his ability to remain at attention, unshaken in the face of the unanticipated spectacle. To them, it wasn't just about the viral moment. It was about his professionalism and the way he had risen above a potentially embarrassing situation with grace. But for Ethan, the most meaningful reactions came from his family. That evening, after the whirlwind of attention and media buzz had died down, Ethan's phone rang. It was his father, the man who had raised him with an unshakable belief in duty and responsibility, a man of few words who was known for his silent strength. Ethan had braced himself for his father's usual quiet pride, but this time his voice was different. "Son, you made us proud," he said, his words heavy with emotion. For a man who had spent years imparting lessons of courage, sacrifice, and honor, hearing his father's pride was a feeling that transcended any public recognition. Ethan's eyes stung with emotion. In that moment, he realized that his father saw him not just as the son who had followed in his footsteps to serve his country, but as part of something bigger, something that had resonated across the nation. The story of the runaway hat had become a testament to values his father had instilled in him: humility, respect, and the strength to persevere through adversity. Ethan's mother, though worried for him in the midst of all the attention, couldn't hide her pride. She had watched the video repeatedly, her heart swelling with each new replay. At first, she had feared the public scrutiny that might follow a moment like this, but seeing the outpouring of admiration and understanding from people around the world, she realized something more. Ethan's actions had reflected the very best qualities of service, strength, dignity, and the ability to rise above the noise. She could sense the pride in her husband's voice, but it was Ethan who had given them this unexpected gift. To her, the story was no longer about the viral video. It was about her son's character, his ability to stand tall under pressure, and the quiet way he had handled the situation with a maturity beyond his years. For Ethan, the viral fame wasn't what mattered most. It was never about the millions of views or the endless memes circulating online. What truly mattered was the lesson that the moment had taught him. Amidst the chaos of the wind, the pressure of the mission, and the uncertainty of what might happen next, he had learned something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Kindness and respect can come from the most unexpected places, even from the leader of the free world. In a moment that could have been filled with ridicule or embarrassment, the President of the United States had chosen empathy over power, humanity over status. That simple, unexpected act of kindness spoke volumes, and for Ethan, it reinforced the values he had been raised with, the idea that even in the most high-pressure moments, grace and respect can shine through, no matter who you are or what your title may be. As the days passed, Ethan's life gradually returned to its familiar rhythms. The viral fame had faded, but the lessons learned from that moment remained etched in his mind. He had expected the chaos, the judgment, the noise that typically follows such a public spectacle. But what he had received instead was something far more valuable, a reminder that even in the most unexpected of circumstances, humanity can triumph over the chaos of the world around us. And for that, he was forever grateful. The image of President Trump placing the hat back on Ethan's head quickly became more than just a fleeting moment. It transformed into a powerful symbol, a visual embodiment of something far greater than a simple act of kindness. It stood as a reminder that, no matter how powerful or high-ranking a person may be, respect for those who serve in the military is a fundamental value that transcends rank, authority, and status. For many, it was a poignant reminder that even those who hold the highest positions in the land should show reverence for the sacrifices made by those who defend their country. Veterans, in particular, were deeply moved by the gesture. They saw, in that simple moment, an acknowledgement of their own struggles, their own service, and the sacrifices they had made throughout their careers. To them, it wasn't just about the Marines standing on the tarmac, it was about the millions of soldiers, past and present, who had given so much in service of the country. The image of a president, often viewed through a lens of political power and authority, bending down to offer respect to a young Marine, encapsulated the recognition that many veterans felt they had long been denied in a world that often forgets the weight of military service. For them, it was a reminder that, despite the distance that time and experience often place between generations of soldiers, their contributions were still valued. It was a moment of connection, a bridge between past and present, between the men and women who served in different eras, but all bound by the same core principles of duty, sacrifice, and honor. For the public, the moment was equally powerful. In a world where leaders are often seen as distant figures, surrounded by security, media, and constant scrutiny, this simple act humanized President Trump in a way that was rare. It was a rare glimpse into a side of him that many had not expected to see. The human side of a man often portrayed as larger than life, unapproachable, and sometimes divisive. In that brief, unguarded moment, people saw more than just a political figure. They saw a person capable of empathy, someone who understood the significance of what the Marine represented and the value of his service. The image wasn't about policies or political allegiances. It was about recognizing the humanity in others, no matter their position or title. For many viewers, it was a moment of shared emotion, one that transcended politics and touched hearts on a deeply personal level. It reminded people that, despite the deep divides in society, there were moments when kindness, respect, and empathy could break through. And for Ethan, it was a moment he would carry with him for the rest of his life. The image of President Trump's smile as he gently placed the hat back on his head would forever be imprinted in his mind, not as a reminder of a viral sensation, but as a symbol of something deeper. It was a reminder that, even in the most stressful, chaotic, and high-pressure situations, humanity can still shine through amidst the noise of the world, the expectations, the judgments, the fears. There was still room for simple acts of kindness. It taught him that leadership isn't about status or titles, it's about recognizing others, valuing them, and taking the time to show that respect. The event had been a test of character, and Ethan had passed it, not just through his ability to remain composed, but through the lesson he learned in that moment, that humanity, in its purest form, is always a choice. As the weeks passed, the image continued to circulate, and Ethan's life slowly returned to its routine, but the lessons from that day stayed with him. Every time he donned his uniform, he was reminded of the unexpected kindness he had received. It wasn't just about the attention, it was about the connection that had been made, the reminder that respect for those who served should never be taken for granted, and the understanding that leadership is most powerful when it is rooted in imagination. And the viral moment had come and gone, but the impact of that simple act of respect lingered far longer. For the world, it was a fleeting instance in time, a snapshot of a moment of grace. For Ethan, it was a memory that would continue to shape his perspective on leadership, service, and the importance of treating others with dignity, no matter their position. The lesson he learned on that windy tarmac would echo throughout his career and his life, reminding him that no matter where he went, no matter what happened, the most important thing was always the humanity we show to one another. What started as a simple gust of wind quickly morphed into a viral moment that captured the attention of millions. In a world often consumed by division, tension, and polarization, the image of President Trump bending down to return a Marine's runaway hat became an unexpected symbol of something much greater. It was a small act, seemingly inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, but it carried with it a profound message, a reminder that kindness, humility, and respect can rise above the noise of politics and the often chaotic events of daily life. The image resonated deeply with people across the world, offering a fleeting but powerful moment of unity where individuals from all backgrounds could come together, momentarily setting aside their differences to appreciate the simplicity of a respectful gesture. In a time when headlines are often dominated by conflict, disagreement, and the clash of ideologies, this small moment, a hat being returned to its rightful owner, served as a refreshing reminder of the things that truly matter. It reminded people of the importance of respect, respect for others, respect for service, and respect for the human dignity that unites us all. It reminded us that no matter how high we rise in life or how much power we wield, there is always room for humility and recognition of others' worth. In that one small act, the world saw the kind of leadership and compassion that doesn't demand a podium or an audience. It simply requires the will to do what's right, even in the smallest of moments. For many, it became a symbol of duty, not just the duty that comes with wearing a uniform, but the duty we all have to treat one another with kindness, regardless of circumstance. Whether you're a world leader or a soldier standing at attention on a tarmac, we are all bound by a shared responsibility to honor the dignity of others, to recognize the value in those around us, and to act with empathy and respect. The image of President Trump placing the hat back on Ethan's head was more than a gesture of courtesy. It was an embodiment of this fundamental principle, a reminder that every day, in every small interaction, we have the opportunity to show respect, to make the world a little better, and to remind others of their worth. And as Ethan reflects back on that day, the viral fame and the endless memes are secondary to the deeper, more meaningful lesson that the experience taught him. It was never about the recognition or the sudden rush of attention. It was about the message behind it all. Compassion and leadership, he realized, aren't defined by grand, showy gestures or carefully crafted statements. They are defined by the small, seemingly inconspicuous acts that shape who we are as individuals and as a society. A hat, returned to its owner with kindness, might seem like a trivial thing to some, but to Ethan, it was a defining moment, a moment that reinforced the truth that the most profound forms of leadership often come in the most unexpected ways. It's easy to get caught up in the noise of daily life, to think that leadership requires grand speeches or monumental actions. But Ethan's experience taught him that true leadership is often found in the quiet moments, in the unspoken acts of kindness that, while small, carry with them a power that can resonate far beyond their immediate context. A small gesture, a simple act of humanity, can ripple through the world, inspiring others to take those same small steps of kindness and respect. For Ethan, that day on the tarmac will forever be more than just a viral moment. It will always serve as a reminder that, in the end, what truly defines us is not the attention we receive or the titles we hold, but the way we treat others. Compassion, respect, and duty are values that transcend the noise of fame and politics. They are the foundation upon which true leadership is built. In a world that sometimes feels divided and fractured, those small moments of humanity are the ones that have the power to bring us back together, to remind us of what really matters. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe to William's Wisdom Stories for more tales that inspire, touch, and surprise. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might just change the way you see the world.